This is an excerpt of a recent Power Up webinar called Ask Larry Anything. Hi, my name is Larry Jordan. In this short video excerpt, I'll illustrate how to improve the speed of your video editing computer system by increasing the speed of its storage. Alan asks, I've got a 2019 MacBook Pro running an Intel i9 with two Seagate 5400 RPM 8 terabyte drives. They're connected as separate drives. I have a 20 terabyte SATA drive connected to an older computer, and I'm seeing slowdowns in rendering and editing. It sounds like it's probably storage-based, so to consolidate my storage and improve performance, should I get a dock and connect more separate drives? Get a RAID 5 and connect via USB-C or Thunderbolt, get an SSD, or get an M-series Mac. Your 2019 i9 computer is more than fast enough to edit both HD and 4K images, so I don't think you need to rush out and buy an M-series Mac, although you'll see significant speed-ups if you do. I think the problem is your storage. The basic problem is one hard disk is not fast enough to do the kind of 4K editing that you're moving into. Let me illustrate. If we look at hard disk speeds by storage type, a hard disk, an older hard disk, a cheap hard disk connected via USB-A delivers about 100 megabytes per second of data. Now, storage varies based upon age and configuration, components, amount of free space, so consider these ranges as opposed to a very specific number. If you get a modern hard drive connected via USB-C or Thunderbolt, more than double the speed, 175, 200 megabytes a second. Combining two drives together into a RAID 0 doubles it again, 300 megabytes a second. A 4-drive HDD RAID 5, which reserves one drive for protection in case a hard drive dies, 400 megabytes a second, which is roughly the same as a SSD, a slower SSD called a PCIe SSD. The real speed changes, though, occur when you move from hard drive spinning media to SSDs, solid-state drives. As we can see, a 2, 3, and 4-blade SSD RAID 0 gives us speeds that are in the gigabytes per second. And an NVMe SSD, like a Samsung T7, pushes speeds close to almost 3 gigabytes a second. So the first question you have to ask yourself is, how much speed do I really need? I did a study recently using Blackmagic speed test. On the left are the results of a slow USB-A connected hard drive, less than 100 megabytes a second. And yet, even though the speeds are that slow, if you look on the table below, the green check marks indicate those frame sizes and frame rates and codecs that can be successfully played at that speed. And everything above the blue line is HD. Between the blue and green line is 4K, and below the green line is 8K. And even though the hard drive is less than 100 megabytes a second, it edits every format of 720 and 1080 video. When I move over to a RAID 5, or in this case a PCIe SSD, which are roughly the same speed, we see every flavor of HD can be edited, every flavor of 2K, every flavor of 4K can be edited. We only have problems as we get into 8K video or larger. Because Alan's question concerned moving from HD to 4K, the problem is that the speed that 4K requires exceeds the speed that his hard disk can provide. Let me illustrate. Here are storage bandwidth requirements for 1080p HD, and you can see that the amount of bandwidth required for editing, the green bar, escalates rapidly as we change codecs. AVC HD, which is a flavor of H.264, doesn't take a whole lot of bandwidth. But the quality that ProRes 422 provides requires faster bandwidth, almost 6 times more. And if we go to ProRes 4x4, again for 1080 footage, it's double that again. But it's more than just the codec. It also is frame size. 9 megabytes a second to edit 720p doubles that. 1080 is 18. But when you move to 4K, notice that you've moved from roughly 20 megabytes a second to close to 80 megabytes a second, 4 times faster. This is a huge jump, especially if you have slower drives. It gets worse as you move to 6K and worse still with 8K. The larger the frame size, the faster your storage must be. Also, the faster the frame rate, the faster your storage must be. 60 megabytes a second for 24 or 25 frames a second, 75 for 30, 120 for 50, and 147 for 60 frames a second. So it may seem simple. I'm going to go from editing 24 frame 1080 to 60 frame a second 4K. How hard can it be? Well, surprisingly difficult. So much so that a single hard disk may not have the performance necessary, especially an inexpensive one connected via USB-A, may not have the performance necessary to support the frame rate and frame size and codec that you want to edit. Well, what benefits from adding faster storage? Importing is the same regardless of the speed of the storage, and editing and trimming are the same. But where the benefits come from is in editing larger frame sizes or faster frame rates. Multicam playback and editing, color grading, rendering, effects and transitions, media export, proxy creation, and video compression all benefit from faster storage. I was doing some observations recently of both Premiere Pro and Final Cut Pro. I had a high-speed SSD RAID connected, and Premiere was accessing data to create proxies at more than 900 megabytes a second, which means that the proxies were being created a whole lot faster than if it was attached to a much slower drive. With Final Cut, the speeds exceeded 2 gigabytes a second in terms of how fast it was processing data for proxy creation. So while not every aspect of editing will improve with faster storage, everything listed here will. This was an excerpt of a recent Power Up webinar called Ask Larry Anything. For the complete version of this online training, please visit my store at larryjordan.com/store and look for Webinar 356. By the way, when you need to stretch your training dollars, membership in our video training library saves you money and time. You can access all our videos for a low monthly price of only $19.99. That's almost 2,000 movies, hundreds of hours on a wide variety of subjects. Plus, premium members can download practice media and projects. Our training covers Apple and Adobe software. We update it multiple times each month, and for more information, visit larryjordan.com/membership. And thanks